Hello, I'm STEMilyK, your hostess to the world of STEM, and today I'm here with Miss Brodock, who is the CEO of Women 2.0. So, first, I just want to start with your educational background. So, how did you really get involved with STEM, and what sparked your interest?
So I actually came out of high school thinking I was going to be a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I had been doing a lot of math and sciences. I was very good at them, and I went into my undergrad on that track,
Mm-hmm.
and then I actually realized that um, I hadn't given myself enough time to explore some other things. So I switched in college to history and political science. Um, and my mom, I laugh because my mom, she would say, well, okay, if you're not going to be a doctor, it's okay, you can still be a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, I ended my undergrad with a BA in history and a
Mm-hmm.
BA in political science. Thought I was actually going to be a history teacher, but my first job out of college when I moved to Boston was actually at a small tech transfer firm
Wow.
right in the middle of like Cambridge, Massachusetts, right outside
Mm-hmm.
MIT, right in the startup hub
Yeah.
in Massachusetts, right in that area. And that I got the bug. I was like, I was with that firm for about 3 years. Started out my network in the
Mm-hmm.
tech startup space, all techie, everything like that. I ended up going back to graduate school. I still had this desire to be doing some international work, but I did want to make sure that I had the business side of things. At that time, a lot of people would go through an international relations degree and they'd go into
Yeah.
government, they'd go into nonprofits, some sort of mission oriented, very sort of low tech, low business. So I got a combination of a master's degree in international relations and then an MBA.
Wow.
So I studied entrepreneurship in my MBA program and marketing. Um, and then I really jumped straight back into the startup space.
Mm-hmm.
I did some consulting in the area, dipped in and out of a couple industries. I went back into higher ed for a bit, but for the last decade, sort of on the side, I've been doing all of this work with women in tech.
Yeah.
So I was likewise connected to 50 chapters around the world of women in the local women in tech community, which, and tech, we generally speaking, we really focused on sort of like the startup tech community
Mm-hmm.
and coding and, that side of things. So not so much sciences or
Yeah.
that. So that was our version of tech, and still my version of tech.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been doing that also on this. I had been doing that on the side for years, and just connecting to these women around the world who were volunteering and just doing amazing things on the ground. And then I got the opportunity and so I had this world where I was connected to a bunch of hubs. I was also very connected to like straight the middle of Silicon Valley tech
Mm-hmm.
scene, startups, that sort of thing. Um, and so last year I had the opportunity to take over Women 2.0, which is again a decade old brand based out of Silicon Valley, very well respected brand. I had known of it for
Yeah.
years, um, and I had the opportunity to take over that company, and now we're really a startup. We're a tech startup, so we're a
Yeah.
for-profit, for-good company. And what we're sort of doing is we're trying to put a lot of tech behind the solutions that we provide to women, to female founders, and to the tech space, all tackling gender diversity.
Mm-hmm.
So I sort of hit the STEM field from a bunch of different directions.
So, could you walk us through what a day to day is like for
Yeah.
you?
Yes. So I've gotten pretty disciplined. It actually took me almost a decade of professional life to know when to say no.
Yeah.
Because I'm the type of person that gets super excited about stuff that passes my desk, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to get involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was finding myself with not a lot of time, that sort of thing. So I've really gotten myself down to a process. So what I do is I generally wake up, I try to have a session of email in the morning. Generally there's a lot of email. And then I try not to schedule any meetings in the morning unless I have to like talk to Europe or something like that. So I try to keep my mornings free to do some strategy level work. And a couple of the things we're working on now, we have a recruitment platform for women developers, data scientists, that type of thing. So hiring platform. We're creating a way online where companies can access diversity and inclusion experts for their companies. And then we're creating an entire online system in 2018 for women to, female founders in early stage, to basically get on, do anything from, prepping for funding or getting actual access to investors, that type of thing, basically to get their tech startups moving. So those, and then on the side, we also run I shouldn't say on the side, but more on the mission focus, is that we run really cool committee on men as allies. So one of our big things is we feel pretty strongly that men need to really be part of this entire conversation. So the work sort of is in any number of those items, and then the latter half of the day, I schedule my calls. So I'll generally have a handful of calls in the afternoon, another email session, and it's really across the board. We're organizing an event in New York City for February. And it's great. I mean, I'm on the phone literally every day with Silicon Valley or some other part of the world doing cool stuff. And just trying and working with awesome brands. So it's exciting. I really love it.
So you could address the favorite part of your job or like your best memory, and then also a challenge that you've had to overcome.
Yes. Okay, great. So the best part of all of the work that I do is working with the people who are so passionate about diversity in tech. And I say people because if you had asked me 3 years ago when I was involved in another nonprofit in the space, we had all women who were running our chapters. And they were so passionate, and they were just amazing, and they some of them, my God, should have been paid for part-time jobs practically. The amount of work that they were just so much passion. I love it. And that was the most fulfilling thing for me. And now I get to work with both men and women who really are adamant and genuinely wanting to make change in this issue of diversity in tech. They know it's important, not just the right thing to do, but also it's beneficial for business. So that's really great. One of the challenges, two challenges we have right now, and really they both boil down to education of the people that we're working with, is that we're taking a new model, this for-profit, for-good model in this particular space, women in tech. Most of the organizations working on it are nonprofits. And that's a very comfortable model for people. We've had to talk a lot about the for-profit, for-good model. And then the other piece of it is really figuring out what the next stage of women in tech stuff is. We think it's tech, we think it's scale and access, so putting things online. But that's still a huge transition for the people that we're working with. They're so used to sort of just having events and that sort of thing. So we're those are probably two challenges on for right now.
So what in this whole process is something that you've learned and then based off of that, what advice do you have for girls looking to enter this field?
Yep. So, God, I've learned so much. I would probably actually say, and I can almost answer both of those questions in one response, is that when I was coming out of college or high school or anything like that, thinking about my profession, the concept of what gender you are didn't even cross my mind.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to not have that be part of my upbringing as an issue, and then when you go into this tech startup world and that sort of thing, I wish that I had known some of those hurdles that was up against. Not to be defiant, but just so I knew and was conscious of some of the reasons that I or my colleagues might get discouraged. And a perfect example of this is one of the huge drop-off points for women's involvement in any STEM field, really, in college, is in university. They might enter college in a computer science, in biomedical engineering or something like that, and that's a huge place for them to get out. And part of that is because they don't actually realize a lot of the subtle unconscious things that are happening. Maybe professors who aren't as supportive. Maybe they don't even realize how being the only woman in a technology class is actually affecting their motivation. So knowing that that is an issue, it can totally be overcome, but understanding that that will be a piece of them and their experience moving forward, and then just understanding how to sort of absorb that. Honestly, just being conscious of it makes such a big difference in the way that you tackle things. If you know it's there, you're like, you know what, I can do something about that. And so that's probably one big thing I'd say, especially for young women at of your age, thinking about college and that sort of thing. Just know it's out there, and a lot of people don't. So
So, what is something that you wish you could go back and tell your teenage self?
That's a good question. I think I would have said, back to one of my original points, is learn how to say yes a little bit more effectively. And what that really means is probably learn how to say no more, but understanding that in those first 5 or 8 years of my professional experience, I may have been able to do things a little bit deeper if I had fewer things on my plate. Honestly, that's one of the biggest things that I had to probably overcome professionally, and I know it's very common. I was that hungry teenager who was just like, I'm going to take, I think I took 10 SAT 2s. Like, did you even know there were SAT? Yeah, well, nobody when I was growing up even knew there were SAT 2s as an option, but I took 10 of them. And I did every extracurricular thing you could ever imagine. And then I went to college and I did the same thing. And then I kept saying yes. And I do really wish I had learned how to focus that energy a bit more, because I think that I would have had, not that I'm lamenting where I am now, but I think I would have had a couple of more long-term effects if I had done that. So that's definitely one thing.
So, in terms of all of the work you do with gender diversity, what is something that's surprised you through all of your findings?
I'm laughing because I was literally just talking about this yesterday. to be honest with you, one of the most surprising things to me is the concept of unconscious bias.
Yeah.
Which, in case there's a listener who doesn't quite understand that, it's basically all of, and for us it's gender bias. So all of the points, especially in the workplace, where someone is creating a barrier for equality with women that they don't even realize they're doing. So a couple of examples of that, of common examples of that, might be that if you're in a meeting, for instance, the men tend to talk over in great numbers the women, or a woman might voice an idea and it is sort of hushed down, and then a man 5 minutes later might bring up the exact same idea and be applauded. Now, when you think about like that exact scenario, you sort of think, well, geez, how could that actually happen? That seems so silly. Like, I can't imagine someone just takes somebody's idea and represents it and no one catches on. The thing is that it happens every day. And when I started actually seeing it in front of me, or I would have bosses or colleagues do it, and you sit here and it sort of just builds up, and it can be really shocking.
Yeah.
The level to which that happens. And that's one of the things that I feel it's going to be one of the most difficult things to change in this entire conversation. But, it's something we're trying to tackle. A lot of it's education at first. Knowing that you even do it is the first step.
Yeah.
So that's honestly, in a lot of my work, that's probably one of the biggest things. And then most recently, this idea, we started our Men as Allies committee earlier this year, before sort of all this sexual harassment stuff came in. And it's amazing how much people absolutely are clamoring for that idea. So that's cool, is really saying, you know what, men are 50% of this equation, and oftentimes they're 50% of the sort of in the power position in the equation. So it's been really nice to have people understand that that's got to change, and that men really have to be a much more active part of what we're doing.
I thank you so much for giving up your time today to be with us here at STEMilyK. And again, I'm STEMilyK, your hostess to the world of STEM. Bye!